You didn't choose this story. The road did. Every time someone presses play, another forgotten exit wakes up. Another pump flickers back to life. Another traveler gets pulled off the map. So before we begin, look around. Make sure every light in your room is real. Because once this story starts, the highway starts listening. And if it hears your breath, it will think you're on your way. Welcome. You have entered a spooky universe where stories never sleep and shadows never fade. Let's blend your like and subscribe into a spooky universe. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? I've always found that question fascinating because no matter where you are, when the lights go out and the night grows cold, the same darkness finds us all. Let the shadows rise and rule. I'd been driving for 9 hours straight when the GPS told me to take the next exit for gas. The road was empty, washed in that faded orange glow that only exists on dying highways. Rain had been chasing me since dusk, the kind that looks like static through the windshield. When the sign appeared, GAS, food, rest, exit 43, I didn't think twice. There was nothing else for miles. The off-ramp curved into darkness. No other headlights, just mine. The first thing I saw was the sign Harlow Fuel Open 24 hours. Only half the letters still worked. The O flickered on and off, like it couldn't decide if it was still part of the living world. I pulled in under the overhang. Every pump was stained with rust, and the concrete shimmered under thin rainwater. No cars, no lights inside the store. But the pumps still had digital displays glowing faint blue. I remember thinking, someone must still be paying the power bill. When I stepped out of the car, the sound hit me. Not wind, not rain, but that hollow electric hum of something old still trying to work. It felt like being watched by the station itself. I lifted the nozzle. The screen blinked awake. Welcome back. I froze. It wasn't my name, but somehow it felt personal, like it knew me. The message vanished before I could process it, replaced with a single instruction: prepay inside. I almost turned around right there. The door to the convenience store had a bell above it, but when I pushed it open, there was no sound, just the hiss of air and the smell of dust and diesel. The inside looked abandoned, like nobody had stepped foot in here for years. The ceiling tiles sagged with water stains. A single fluorescent bulb flickering like it was losing an argument with the dark. Rows of old snacks lined the aisles, chips with logos I hadn't seen since childhood. Soda bottles thick with dust, all the labels bleached pale. I should have walked back to my car, but behind the counter, half shrouded in shadow, someone stood. A man. He didn't move when I entered, didn't greet me. He just stared ahead, like he'd been waiting. "Hey," I called out. My voice sounded small in the empty air. "Do you still take cards?" He tilted his head slowly, like he was remembering how to do it. His face was wrong. Not frightening at first, just off. His skin looked gray under the lights, and his eyes didn't reflect anything. It was like the color had been drained out of him. He spoke, eventually. His voice was flat, almost mechanical. "Pump 3. I glanced back outside. There were only 2 pumps. I think I'm at pump 2. He blinked once. Slow. "Pump 3. Something inside me twisted. I placed my card on the counter. He didn't touch it, didn't look down. Behind him was a wall of faded photos, Polaroids pinned under cracked glass. All of them showed the same thing. Cars at the gas station. Different models, different decades, but each one parked in the exact same spot, right where mine was now. I picked my card back up. Actually, you know what? The overhead light went out. The store plunged into darkness for a split second before the emergency light flickered red. When I looked back at the counter, the man was gone. No sound of movement, no door opening, just gone. The bell above the entrance never chimed, but the door was wide open. Rain hissed outside, and through the gray blur of it, I could see something move behind my car. A shadow tall, wrong in shape, like a person caught mid-step but stretched by the light. Then the pump clicked on by itself. The pump shouldn't have been working. I hadn't paid. I hadn't even selected a grade. Yet the handle buzzed softly in my grip, the screen flashing numbers that didn't match the real world. No dollars, no gallons. Just a counter spinning endlessly. 43, 43, 43. That number, it was the exit I'd taken. It was also the number printed faintly across every faded sign on the station's walls. Exit 43. Harlow, fuel. Always open, never closed. I dropped the handle, the sound sharp against the rain. That's when I heard it static, faint and crackling, leaking from the intercom speaker above the pump. Then, a voice. "You made it back." I froze. The voice was mine. Not just similar, it was exactly me. The way I sounded when I was exhausted, trying to make small talk. "Come inside. It's warmer here." I stumbled backward, staring at the store. The interior lights had gone completely dark, but a dim red glow pulsed inside, like the heartbeat of the building itself. My first instinct was to run, but when I looked out toward the road, the exit ramp I'd taken was gone. The highway that had been a few hundred feet away was nothing but a sheet of darkness, no lights, no sound of passing cars, not even rain hitting pavement. It was as if the world ended at the edge of the lot. I climbed back into the car, trying to calm my breathing. The engine coughed, then died. Dashboard. Lights flickered erratically before the entire car went black. That's when the radio clicked on by itself. It wasn't my playlist or the local station. It was a broadcast, fuzzy, distant, like a transmission trapped between channels. The time is now 3:43 a.m. All travelers, please remain with your vehicles. The attendant will assist you shortly. The voice was calm, familiar, eerily polite. Then came the static again, followed by what sounded like the faint echo of another car door closing. Except there were no other cars. I sat there in silence, gripping the wheel. Rain hissed on the roof like whispering voices, too many to count. In the reflection of the windshield, the convenience store door was closed again. And through the glass, behind the counter, the man had returned. Only now, he wasn't alone. A second figure stood beside him, its shape tall and hollow, its head tilted toward the ceiling like it was listening for something. I realized the emergency light wasn't red anymore. It was pulsing with every beat of my heart. Then, for the first time since I'd arrived, the bell above the door chimed. Once, twice, a third time. Even though no one had gone in or out, I don't remember making the choice to go back inside. I just remember the rain going silent behind me, as though the moment I stepped through the door, the sound itself stopped working. The lights flickered dim orange now, powered by some unseen generator that pulsed in rhythm with the thunderless storm outside. Every corner of the shop felt warped, like I was walking through a memory that didn't belong to me. I called out again, softer this time. "Hello?" No answer, but something responded. The old CRT television in the far corner, the kind that still had knobs, flickered to life. Snowy static filled the screen, then cleared just enough to show the same counter I stood behind. Except this time, the man was sitting there, younger, alive, smiling faintly. He looked up at the camera and said, "This is station log number 43B, May 16th, 1993. Another traveler stopped tonight. Male, mid-30 seconds. He didn't leave. The words punched through the static like gunfire. He continued, his tone flat and resigned. Same story every time. They come in when the rain hits. They ask for gas. Then they see it. Then they stay. Behind him, something was moving, a shape crawling on the wall, like it was made of shadow and electricity. The man kept talking like he didn't notice it. The company said we weren't supposed to close. Not ever. That's the rule. We keep the lights on, keep the pumps full, and when the night gets long enough, we keep them. The screen glitched, and for a fraction of a second I saw the man's face melt into something else, my own face, staring back through the static. I stumbled backward into an aisle, knocking over a rack of dust-covered candy. Everything hit the floor, in dead silence, no sound, not even my breathing. That's when I noticed a reel-to-reel tape recorder sitting under the counter. Its red light blinked faintly. It was labeled in scrawled handwriting, "New Attendant." I pressed play. The tape hissed. Then a voice emerged, quiet, nervous, human. "If you're hearing this, it means you didn't make it back to the road. Nobody does. Don't look for the exit. Don't talk to him. He's not." The voice cut out. A new one came through. Low, distorted, and close enough to feel in my chest. "Pump 3 is ready." The TV screen flared white, filling the store with a light so bright it burned my eyes. And in that moment, I saw every Polaroid on the wall animate. Each photograph showed faces pressed against the glass, screaming silently from inside their pictures. When the light dimmed, the man from the footage stood behind the counter again. Only this time, he was wearing my jacket, and he smiled. "Welcome to Harlow Fuel," he said in my own voice. "Prepay inside." I don't remember screaming. I just remember the lights dying again, leaving only the hum of the refrigerators and that wet smell of old gasoline seeping through every crack in the floor. When my vision cleared, the man was gone. My jacket, his jacket, now hung neatly on the hook beside the counter. It dripped like it had been outside in the rain for years. The bell above the door rang once. The sound didn't echo right. It felt like it came from behind me, not the doorway. I turned slowly. Through the glass of the front window, the world had shifted. It wasn't raining anymore. It wasn't night anymore. The lot outside was bright, drenched in daylight, but everything beyond the edge of the pavement was gray, featureless, as if the world ended in a white void. And in the middle of that empty light, a car pulled in. It was my car. Same dented bumper, same sticker peeling from the windshield. I watched myself get out, same jacket, same exhausted posture, and walked toward the store, just as I had an hour ago. Only it wasn't an hour ago. It couldn't have been. Because the clock behind the counter read 3:43 a.m. Always 3:43. The same number that had looped endlessly on the pump screen. The same time announced by the radio voice. The same number of the exit itself. I pounded on the glass, yelling at my reflection, "Don't go in! Don't!" But he couldn't hear me. He stepped inside, and the bell above the door chimed twice. Then once more that offbeat rhythm again. He walked to the counter, and when I looked behind it, I realized I was standing there. The same posture, the same stillness. My mouth opened, but the words that came out weren't mine anymore. "Pump 3, he frowned, confused, just like I had been. The cycle began again. I tried to move, to warn him, but my hands didn't listen. They moved on their own, sliding a fresh roll of receipts into the register, straightening a display that hadn't been touched in decades. The air was heavy now, thick with oil and static, like the station itself was alive and breathing through me. Outside, the sign flickered back to life. Harlow Fuel open 24 hours. Each letter glowed one at a time, until the last one, the O in open, blinked and dimmed to black. And from somewhere deep inside the building, a voice whispered soft and close to my ear, "We never close, not while the road remembers." I looked down at the counter. A new Polaroid had appeared beneath the glass, the image still developing. A photo of the man who had just entered, his face blurred by motion, mouth open mid-breath. Below it, in scrawled red ink, were two words, "I'm here." They say that if you drive along the I-43 corridor after midnight and the rain starts to fall, you might see an old exit sign that doesn't exist on any modern map. The station still standing, half lit, half dead, waiting for the next traveler to run low on fuel. The door will always open. The pump will always read 43. And when you go inside to prepay, someone who looks just like you will be waiting behind the counter, smiling, because the next shift starts at midnight. And I'll be waiting behind the counter, just like he was, just like you will be, if you take exit 43. Story 2, the overnight shift, 3 a.m. Customers. Working nights at a gas station was never supposed to be scary. Boring, sure. Lonely, definitely. But not this. Our station sat off an empty stretch of state road, an old two-pump joint that barely kept its lights on. My shift ran from midnight to 6. Most nights, I saw 1 or 2 travelers at most. But in my 4th week, the pattern started. Every night, at exactly 3 a.m., a red sedan would pull up to pump 2. It never made a sound. No engine, no gravel crunch. Just appeared. I'd blink, and it would be there. Through the glare of the floodlights, I could barely make out a driver. Always the same outline. A man sitting perfectly still, hands on the wheel. The first night, I went out to ask if he needed help. The car was cold to the touch. No driver inside. When I turned back, the station lights were cut out. When they flicked back on, the car was gone. I told my manager about it. He brushed it off, said I'd been up too long, maybe seeing things. Still, he humored me and pulled the security tape from that night. We watched it together in the office. At exactly 3:03, the camera glitched a smear of red across the frame, and for 1 second, the feed went black. When it returned, I was outside, talking to nothing, just air, no car, no driver, just me, staring into the dark, nodding like I was in a conversation. I swore I'd seen headlights. My manager rewound the footage, paused it mid-glitch, and frowned. "Wait," he said. "Look there." Between frames, a shape had appeared, the faint outline of a person standing directly behind me, their faces pressed too close to the camera, mouth open, eyes gone. The timestamp read 3:43 a.m. I started checking the receipt printer every morning before leaving. The first week, it printed nothing. Then, one night, a paper slip waited for me. It was blank, except for one line. Pump to 3.43 gallons cash. No one had paid. No sale was logged. But the receipt came every night afterward, always the same. 3.43 gallons. Always cash. Then the station lights began flickering at 3:03 sharp. I'd glance up from my register and see the red glow of taillights idling at the pump. Never a sound. Never footsteps. And every time I looked away, even for a blink, the car would vanish. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I printed the receipts, all of them, lined up side by side on the counter. They were blank. But under the blacklight from the cigarette display, words began to appear, "See you inside." That night, I didn't leave the booth. I kept the door locked, the phone beside me. At 3:03, the lights dimmed again. Rain started, though the forecast had promised clear skies. I saw the car roll up. Its windshield glistened with water that wasn't falling anywhere else. Through the fogged glass, I could make out a man, or what was left of one. His skin hung loose, like the air inside was trying to escape. He looked right at me and smiled. Then he held something up a receipt. It read, "Pump 2, 3.43 gallons." The phone rang. I picked it up. "We're low on fuel again," the voice said. It was my own. The lights flickered, and the man outside was gone. But the pump was still running, the counter climbing past numbers that didn't exist. The smell of gasoline filled the booth. I turned, and behind the glass, my reflection was smiling back at me, wearing the red uniform of the station, name tag and all. Only one word was printed on it: attendant. The booth door clicked open by itself. Outside, the sign buzzed back to life. Open 24 hours under new management. Story 3. Mile marker 197. I was driving through western Arizona last summer, running on fumes and caffeine, when the warning light blinked to life on my dashboard. The next exit was still 15 miles away. Out here, that's a kind of loneliness you can taste: heat, asphalt, and silence. When the station finally appeared, I almost laughed in relief. A squat concrete building, half buried in desert sand. The sign so faded I could barely read it. Hendrix Gas. Since 1967, only one pump still worked. The others were boarded over, their hoses curled like blackened vines. I parked, killed the engine, and got out. The air smelled like ozone and rust. The pump's digital screen was fractured but alive, pulsing faintly. As I lifted the nozzle, letters scrolled across the display. "Welcome back, driver 197. I froze. My license plate ended in those numbers. Coincidence, I told myself. Just a glitch in the system. The nozzle clicked. The price never changed. And somewhere behind me, I heard the door to the store swing open. Part 2, the owner who never left. The man behind the counter looked like he hadn't slept in years. Long gray hair, eyes sunk deep, a mechanic's shirt that might once have been blue. "Didn't think we had any travelers left," he said. His voice had the dry rasp of someone who's been breathing dust for decades. I asked if he still took cards. He laughed once, softly. "Out here, money's just paper. Gas is the only thing that still matters." As he spoke, I noticed something odd behind him. Hung dozens of license plates nailed to the wall, each one corroded nearly smooth. They weren't trophies, they were memorials. "Those all customers?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "They all left. None of them made it far." He turned, and I caught my reflection in the dusty plexiglass barrier. For just a moment, I wasn't wearing my clothes. I was wearing his. The pump had stopped. I turned to check the meter. It read 0 gallons, but the tank on my car was full. When I looked down, I saw the ground bulging slightly under the pump, like something beneath the concrete was breathing. A faint hiss came from below, not air, not gas, but something wetter, organic. I stumbled back, heart racing, as the attendant spoke behind me. "It's been leaking for years. Not fuel. Memories. The desert keeps them. Every driver who stops it drinks a little piece of you." The air rippled with heat, and I saw them outlines of people standing at every boarded-up pump. Transparent, half-formed, watching me. "Don't look at them," the man said. "They're what's left of us." The lights above the lot flickered once. When they came back on, the attendant was gone. Only his shirt remained, folded neatly on the counter. I ran to my car and tore down the highway. In the rearview mirror, I watched the station shrink into the desert haze. But just before it vanished entirely, the neon sign sparked back to life. "Open 24 hours. And beneath it, hand-painted in red, was a new word forming under the dust. 197. I'd been driving for 14 hours straight, across the flattest, driest part of western Arizona, chasing a sunset that refused to end. It hung low and red behind me, like a wound in the sky, stretching shadows longer than the highway itself. By the time the gaslight blinked on, the road had already swallowed me whole. No houses, no fences, not even power lines, just sun-bleached asphalt and the hum of the tires whispering over it. I'd been running on caffeine and old songs to stay awake, but even the radio had given up 100 miles back. Just static, now a kind that didn't fade when I turned the dial. My GPS screen had frozen an hour earlier. Still, the voice had whispered one last thing before it died. Next service, 15 miles. 15 miles doesn't sound like much until you're in the middle of nowhere with the fuel needle scraping the bottom. That's when the silence gets personal. You start to taste it. Feel it sitting heavy in your lungs, like the desert itself is listening. So when I finally saw the faint outline of a gas station in the heat shimmer ahead, I almost laughed relief, hysteria, something in between. A squat concrete box, half buried in sand drifts, the windows dark, the sign out front so faded I could barely read it. Hendrix Gas, since 1967. The paint was peeling, the letters ghostly. Only one of the 4 pumps stood unboarded, its metal cracked from the heat. The others leaned at odd angles, hoses curled on the ground like dead snakes. I pulled up to the working one, killed the engine, and stepped out. The air smelled like ozone and rust. No sound. Not even wind. Just the faint hum of electricity that shouldn't have been there. The screen on the pump was fractured, but glowing faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. I lifted the nozzle, and words crawled across the display. Slow, deliberate. "Welcome back, driver 197. I froze. My license plate ended in those numbers. I stared at the display for a long moment, waiting for it to change, for some rational explanation to surface. It didn't. The screen blinked once, then reset to zeros. "Just a glitch," I muttered. "Old software." But as I pushed the nozzle into the tank, I heard a faint metallic click that echoed louder than it should have. The counter began to spin. No dollars, no gallons, just a number cycling endlessly. 197, 197, 197. That's when I heard the door to the store creak open behind me. Inside, the air was colder, not air-conditioned cold, but the kind of still chill that comes from places the sun forgot about. It smelled faintly of copper and dry paper. The interior was a museum of decay. Cracked tile floors, shelves still stocked with expired snacks whose logos belonged to another decade, a soda machine listing sideways. Every surface was coated in a thin layer of desert dust that seemed too fine, like it had sifted in over years or centuries. Behind the counter stood a man. He looked like he'd been carved out of the same dust that covered everything. Thin, long gray hair falling to his shoulders, eyes sunk deep in their sockets. His shirt might have once been blue, but it had faded to the color of bone. "Didn't think we had any travelers left," he rasped, voice like gravel under wind. I tried to smile. "Guess I'm lucky you're open." He chuckled once dry, humorless. "Out here, we're always open." His hands rested flat on the counter. The nails were black, the skin stained as if by oil that never quite washed off. "Still take cards?" I asked. He tilted his head, as if I'd said something strange. "Money's just paper out here," he said softly. "Gas is the only thing that still matters." He nodded toward the pump outside. "Yours is full. Don't worry about payment." I frowned. I didn't need to. He smiled, or tried to. "We keep track." I followed his gaze to the wall behind him. Rows of license plates were nailed there in uneven lines. Hundreds of them, corroded smooth, some barely legible. A few still gleamed with color, blue, yellow, red, like trapped memories refusing to fade. One plate caught my eye, dust-free, gleaming. My state, my numbers, 197. "That one's new," the man said softly. "Just came in. They weren't trophies. They looked like headstones. Those all customers?" I asked, half joking. He nodded slowly. "They all left. None of them made it far." I laughed nervously, but his expression didn't change. When he turned toward the shelves, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the scratched plexiglass divider. For a moment, I wasn't wearing my jacket. I was wearing his shirt, the one with the faded Hendrix gas patch over the heart. Then he spoke again, breaking the trance. "You look tired," he said. "Long way to go?" "California," I said. "Visiting family." He smiled faintly. That's what they all said. Something about the way he said they made the air colder. When I stepped back outside, the heat hit me like a wall dry, but thick, as if the desert had turned solid. The pump had stopped. The counter on the screen read 0 gallons, but the tank on my car was full. I stared at the nozzle dripping clear liquid that smelled faintly metallic. It wasn't gas. It smelled older, heavier, like wet soil after a storm. As I crouched down to inspect it, I noticed the ground around the pump bulging slightly, cracking at the edges as if something below was pushing upward. A faint hiss came from beneath the concrete. Not air, not fuel. It sounded alive. Then came a voice behind me. It's been leaking for years. I turned. The attendant stood at the doorway, half silhouetted against the darkness inside. Not fuel, he said. Memories. The desert keeps them. Every driver who stops it drinks a little piece of you. I tried to laugh it off, but his eyes were dead serious. You feel it, don't you? He whispered. The ground remembers you. The heat knows your name. The air around me shimmered. Through the distortion, shapes began to appear, faint silhouettes gathered around the boarded pumps. Men, women, children, all standing still, their faces featureless, their outlines flickering like old film reels. Don't look at them, the man said. They're what's left of us. I stumbled backward. What are you talking about? He pointed toward the horizon, a flat smear of gold and gray. Every road out here leads back. Every exit's the same one. That's how it keeps us. The ground trembled. Dust poured upward like breath. I looked toward my car. The tires had sunk an inch into the sand, as if the earth was slowly reclaiming it. I turned back toward the man, but he was gone. The doorway was empty. Only his shirt remained on the counter, folded neatly. Name tag half buried in dust. With Hendrix. I didn't think so. I just ran. I jumped in the car, started the engine, and peeled out. Tires screaming as sand sprayed up around me. The highway stretched ahead in a wavering mirage. For the first few miles, I told myself it was over. I'd hallucinated everything. Heat stroke, fatigue, just a story to tell later. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows stretched longer than they should have. And then I saw it. Another gas station in the distance. Same layout, same crumbling sign. Only this one looked newer, like a photo of the same place taken decades before. I slowed down, realizing something impossible. The pump island bore the same number, 197. And under the sign, in flickering red neon, open 24 hours. I hit the gas, swerving around it, refusing to stop, but no matter how far I drove, the lights of that station stayed in my rearview mirror, never getting smaller, always exactly 1 mile behind. I finally reached a small town by dawn, a diner, a few houses, a sheriff's cruiser, parked crooked in front of a rusted post office. I stumbled inside the diner and asked for water. The waitress gave me a look, then poured a glass. "You come off 197?" she asked. I nodded. "How'd you know?" She didn't answer at first. Then she pulled a small photograph from behind the counter, grainy, sun-faded. "This is your car?" It was. Same dent in the fender. Same plate. But the photo looked decades old. Below it, handwritten in pen, "Last seen at Hendrix Gas, the 5th of June, 1973. My throat went dry. "Where'd you get this?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "A man comes through every few years. Same car, same story. Says he's just passing through, always headed west." I stared out the window. The horizon shimmered again, faint light glowing in the distance, red and blue like the reflection of a neon sign. When I looked down, the glass of water in my hand wasn't clear anymore. It was cloudy, filled with something darker swirling at the bottom, something that smelled faintly of gasoline. I pushed the glass away, hands trembling. "Ma'am," I whispered. "What's at mile marker 197? She didn't blink. "Nothing's there anymore," she said softly. "Not since they buried the tanks. Buried what was in them, too," she whispered. "The ones who never left." I didn't stay long. I drove out of town before the sun was fully up, convinced that daylight would burn away the nightmare. But an hour later, my fuel light blinked again. The gauge read empty, though I'd filled the tank. Up ahead, in the morning haze, a familiar sign rose over the horizon. Hendrix Gas since 1967. But this time, the paint was fresh. The windows gleamed. The pump stood straight and silver. And under the sign, a man waved at me. Same gray hair. Same faded shirt. Only now, it wasn't the color of dust. It was the exact shade of my own. I slammed the brakes and stared. In the glass of the dashboard, I saw my reflection smiling back, wearing a Hendrix gas patch over the heart. When I looked up again, the station was gone. Only a small green mile marker remained at the roadside, 197, and below it, freshly carved into the metal with something sharp. Welcome back. You've been listening to Spooky Universe, where every story is a small truth dressed as a nightmare. Asterisk, asterisk. If you made it this far, the road knows your name now. That's how these stories work. They don't end. They just wait. Maybe you'll hear a hum outside your window tonight. Maybe you'll dream of a pump still counting numbers that shouldn't exist. Maybe an exit sign will appear on a road you've driven your whole life. If it does, don't stop. Not for gas. Not for headlights. Not for anything that looks familiar. This was a spooky universe, where stories follow you home, and shadows don't stay in the dark.